10 most expensive abandoned millionaires' mansions. Once upon a time, millions and millions of dollars were spent to build these lavish homes for the rich and famous. These days, they're falling apart. Yes, today we're taking a look at some of the world's most expensive properties that were once loved by millionaires, but are now abandoned and empty. From the former love nest of Prince Andrew and Fergie to the haunted Pink Floyd Manor, are you ready to discover the world's most expensive abandoned millionaires' mansions? Number 10. The Carlton Island Villa, New York, USA. The Carlton Island Villa sits on an island in Cape Vincent in New York and was constructed around 1895 by William O. Wyckoff. Wyckoff decided to use the fortune he acquired from the Remington Firearm and Typewriter Company to construct the 15,000 square foot property. However, one day after moving into the villa, Wyckoff passed away. Afterwards, the mansion was acquired by General Electric, who intended to use it as a corporate retreat, but the plans ended up being abandoned during the Second World War. With 11 bedrooms situated on 6.9 acres, the villa must have been quite the luxury home, but these days it's a shadow of what it used to be. The home went on sale in 2018 for nearly $500,000, but that's nothing compared to the money that would be needed to renovate and repair the property, especially considering it hasn't been lived in for over 70 years. But if you think that mansion is impressive, wait till you see the others on this list, including a mansion with a strange connection to the Titanic. Keep watching if you want to know more about that. Number 9. Hook End Manor, Checkington, UK. The story of Hook End Manor in Oxfordshire starts back in 1580 when the Bishop of Reddington had the home built. After that, the 10-bedroom home passed through quite a few hands. It was first acquired by Sir Charles Clore in the 1950s, but it was sold to the lead singer of the English band 10 years after, Alvin Lee. Lee transformed the barn into a recording studio and went on to record numerous albums. And that's when the home was bought by Pink Floyd member David Gilmour in 1980. Its change of ownership, however, didn't stop there. Around 6 years later, the mansion became the property of the Hollywood producer Trevor Horn, who established Hook End Productions, a state-of-the-art recording studio that saw singles recorded from numerous musicians, including Manic Street, Seal, The Smiths, and even Rod Stewart. This home, however, has a rather ominous history. It is not only believed to have been used as a mental asylum at one point, but it's also reported that Gilmour gave up the property because his wife was so freaked out by the paranormal activity in the home that she refused to stay there. Still, despite its ominous past, producer Mark White ended up buying the property from Horn in 2009, and although he kept the recording studio going, the house was abandoned for years. Number 8. Sunninghill Park, Berkshire, UK. Sunninghill in Berkshire, in the United Kingdom, is home to some of the most expensive real estate in Britain. However, it is also home to one of the world's most expensive abandoned mansions, Sunninghill Park. Sunninghill Park was a wedding gift from the Queen of England to the Duke and Duchess of York when they got married back in 1986. And from the looks of it, the Queen certainly pulled out all the stops. This 12-bedroom mansion, complete with grand reception rooms, stables, and a swimming pool, was the start of what many believed would be a fairy tale marriage. Sadly, that wasn't the case. Prince Andrew and Fergie ended up getting divorced only a few years later, in 1996, but continued to share a home together until the Queen's death in 2002. It was then the pair decided to go their separate ways, leaving their once lavish home empty. Eventually, the home was sold and ownership was handed over to Kazakhstani billionaire Timur Kulybeyov, who left the place abandoned and falling apart. So much so that Sunninghill residents began to complain. Finally, by 2016, the mansion was demolished and a new house was built to take its place. Number 7. Pine Heath House, Harrogate, UK. The Pine Heath House was once the luxurious home of an Indian aristocratic couple, but these days it is rather a time capsule of what it used to be. This 40-room was originally owned by an Indian-born couple, Sir Dungy Boy and Lady Bomanji, who used the property as their autumn residence. However, after both Sir Dungy Boy and Lady Bomanji's death, the house was passed down to Lady Bomanji's daughter, who left the home exactly as it was before her mother's death. This meant the home remained untouched for over 3 decades. Some rooms were still decorated in the typical 1920s style, while others contained old newspaper cuttings and even invitations to society events from the 1970s. This abandoned mansion is truly a home frozen in time. Number 6. Swannanoa Mansion, Rockfish Gap, USA. The Swannanoa Mansion was built back in 1912 by James H. Dooley, a millionaire and philanthropist. It was built to be a summer home for Dooley and his wife and is said to have taken over 300 artisans and 8 years to be completed. By that alone, it's easy to know that the home cost a lot of money, But wait till you hear exactly how much. It's reported that the home cost a whopping $2 million to build. That works out to around $51 million in today's money. The couple lived in the mansion for a little more than a decade before James passed away, and 2 years later, his wife also died, leaving Swannanoa to James's two sisters. They sold the house for a shockingly low price of $300,000, after which it was converted to a country club. However, a few years later, the Great Depression hit, and the country club was sold. This left the mansion empty for years. These days, the mansion is used as a venue for functions including weddings and other events, although it is still a shadow of what it used to be. Number 5. Linwood Hall, Philadelphia, USA. Linwood Hall is situated in Philadelphia and is considered one of the greatest surviving Gilded Age mansions in the United States. The home was originally built between 1897 and 1900 for U.S. tycoon Peter Arrell Brown Widener, who has also been recognized as one of the 100 richest Americans in history. The mansion boasts of an impressive 110 rooms, 55 of which are bedrooms, 20 are bathrooms, and one is a ballroom large enough to accommodate an astonishing 1,000 guests. It's an astounding neoclassical revival masterpiece. But that's not the only intriguing thing about this abandoned real estate. What makes Linwood Hall truly fascinating is its interesting connection to one of the biggest maritime tragedies, the Titanic. Widener was an investor of the iconic passenger liner, the RMS Titanic. And in 1912, Widener's eldest son, George Duncan Widener Sr., his wife, and their son Harry decided to make their home on the ship's doomed maiden voyage. Unfortunately, neither George nor Harry managed to make it out alive when the Titanic sank to the bottom of the ocean, and it left Widener distraught. In fact, many believed the grief contributed to his death in 1915. Following his death, the house was inherited by his only remaining child, Joseph, who took care of the real estate until his own death in 1943. Sadly, none of Joseph's children were interested in upholding the massive property, and it ended up being abandoned and in disrepair. Number 4. Neverland Ranch, Los Olivos, USA. Neverland Ranch is one of the most well-known abandoned mansions in the world. However, a lot of people still don't know the real story behind it. The ranch first got the attention of the late pop star Michael Jackson when he visited former Beatle member Paul McCartney at the ranch to record their song, Say Say Say. Jackson promised that he would one day buy the property, and true to his word, he managed to acquire it around 5 years later for a whopping $19.5 million. The King of Pop named the property Neverland and converted it into his very own amusement park. The ranch contained railways, amusement rides, a Ferris wheel, and even bumper carts. Sadly, this childhood dream quickly turned into a nightmare. In 2003, Jackson faced charges of child abuse, and Neverland was at the center of investigations. Following the saga, Jackson reportedly vowed to never live at the ranch again, and the place was eventually completely abandoned. These days, the Neverland Ranch is also synonymous with Michael Jackson's child abuse allegations, and that could explain why no one has ever wanted to buy it following Jackson's death in 2009. Number 3. Mel Hall, Harrogate, UK. Kidman Hall is a massive Victorian mansion with 356 rooms set in 18 acres of garden. It was once one of the great houses of Wales and was even nicknamed Welsh Versailles. These days, the place is empty, abandoned, and falling apart. In fact, in 2015, it was even added to the Victorian Society's Top 10 Most Endangered Buildings list because of its worsening state. But that begs the question, how does a mansion go from renowned to wrecked? The home was built for Cooper tycoon Hugh Robert Hughes, but ultimately became the property of several different families and had even several different purposes. While originally built as a home, it was also, at different points in time, a girls' school, a Christian conference center, and even a spa to help treat people with rheumatism. Yes, this property has seen many people come and go, but it has yet to have anyone stay, especially in the last few decades. Number 2. Pithercy Castle, Lviv, Ukraine. Between 1635 and 1640, an Italian architect built the Pithercy Castle for a high-ranking Polish military commander. Interestingly enough, this castle was different to other castle constructions in the region at the time. While most castle constructions were built for military purposes, this one was initially designed for leisure. It was truly impeccable and prospered for years. However, in the 19th century, new owners took over ownership of the estate, and by the end of World War II, it had deteriorated greatly. Fire and flood damage had taken its toll on the once glorious property, and despite various attempts to have it restored, it is still only a shell of its former self. Number 1. Bamboo Palace, Batolite, Democratic Republic of the Congo. A few decades back in the 1970s, President Mobutu Sese Seko, leader of what was then known as Zaire, Modern-day Democratic Republic of Congo spent around $130 million to construct a lavish and luxurious estate for himself called Bamboo Palace. The palace was built in a remote village his family came from, Badolite. The impressive property featured a gold-top fence, a nightclub, a vast swimming pool, and more. To take it a step further, Mobutu also had an international airport built nearby so that he and his wife could charter Concorde and fly to Paris together. Mobutu clearly loved to splurge and had no trouble clearing out the state's coffers to be able to make his dream palace come true. However, in 1997, he was found to have embezzled up to $15 million and ended up being deposed. Following the embezzlement scandal, the ex-president fled to Morocco and died in that same year. The abandoned Bamboo Palace was looted and everything of value was taken out or destroyed. Now, more than 20 years later, the once glorious estate is completely abandoned and serves only as a reminder of Mobutu's betrayal to his people. Which one of these abandoned mansions made your jaw drop to the floor? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you want more great content.